I might be able to come up with all sorts of rationale for why, there's some utilitarian case to be made for restricting immigration, but maybe deep down I am just a xenophobe. Okay, I'm willing to sort of concede that.
Sure.
Maybe that's right. Okay.
Well, we all have in-group preference, and anyone who denies that is lying.
Yeah, but maybe mine are really strong. And
Sure.
the reason I'm so hard line against immigration, which I am, is
Yeah.
because I have this deep-seated revulsion toward the other, okay, this sort of xenophobic tendency. And what you're asking me to do with your enlightened centrism is to divorce myself from that intuition and adopt a policy preference that runs counter to the thing, this deep sort of gut feeling that's making me arrive at this strict sort of immigration stance. Now, I will say, okay, maybe there's some wisdom in that. Maybe that moderating impulse is good, but I need to know why I'm wrong. I think you're perfectly within reason to worry about it if the goal is sort of ongoing stability and we want to reduce the possibility of carnage, which I think we all do. But I also think you have to then reconcile with the fact that this disgust impulse, and we'll just use that as a sort of a catch-all for all of these sort of gut level intuitions that are pushing people away from a sort of centrist, stable view of liberal democracy, that these disgust impulses may very well be a kind of necessary instinct and reaction to a liberal democracy or a centrism that, in Oren's words, have become too permissible. That
Agreed.
There needs to be some sort of clearing of the forest. I don't
Amen.
mean that violently, okay?
Sure.
But that the disgust impulse is itself a very healthy and good thing. And those of us who feel it strongly ought not to suppress it. It's very important, in fact, when people feel this and when it reaches a sort of critical mass, that we at least take seriously what's giving rise to it and may try to find anyway, productive ways of exercising that disgust impulse or, at least sublimating it. I'm just wary of denying that this disgust impulse exists or that it's bad, that I shouldn't have it.
I 100% agree with everything you said up until the very end when you said something like we shouldn't deny it outright. Well, we definitely should deny it outright. The disgust impulse is adaptive, 100%. It's part of the behavioral immune system. It's the source of the left-wing concern with polluting the rivers. That's the same mechanism at play. It's good that the left is concerned with environmental pollution and toxic sludge in the river. It's bad when the left says we go so far now we shut down anything that pollutes whatsoever at all, and now we've gone into left-wing environmental utopia. So, the idea that the disgust impulse is good but needs to be moderated is self-evident. It sounds like you didn't even disagree with that.
No, I don't. But that doesn't. So, in my view, that doesn't lead to centrism, to an enlightened centrism. It would lead to.
Depends on how you define it, but sure, yeah.
Well, no, it would lead to a backlash that would. I don't think anyone would define as centrist. It would lead to potentially mass deportations. It would lead to Matt Walsh style tabling of body modification, gender affirming care.
Okay, so let me give you an example. And this is part of my whole project, so to speak, is I regularly get accused. I say I use the words degenerate more so than anyone. Okay, I also was in a fraternity, and I would call my alcoholic fraternity brothers degenerate. People often take it. People who are not in a fraternity don't realize that's how we use the term, and they just see it as, well, Hitler said people were degenerate, whatever. It's and I said at the beginning, 13-year-old children getting their breasts surgically removed by a for-profit medical industrial complex is not just disgusting. I would say it's fucking satanic. Okay. I'm not even particularly Christian. But that's more than appropriate to say that. And in fact, it's not only important to say that, it's important for reasonable people who are capable of capable of recognizing that impulse within them and recognizing this impulse is real. it's justified given what's happening to these kids. But I have to be conscious of the fact that if I don't moderate it, then I will eventually get to the point where actually, no, any body modification is illegal, and you get into the fascistic spiral. So
well, let me ask you this on this point, because this is where I would challenge then.
And just real quick on the immigration point, mass deportation could perfectly be the correct solution if the environment was such that that was what needed to be done.
Like right now?
I don't know. I have to look at the post. I'm in.
So, hold on.
Go ahead.
Let's go back to the satanic body modifications. Okay, cutting off these girls' breasts and chemically mutilating these kids.
Yeah,
abhorrent. Okay, like world
satanic.
Historical levels of deranged violence.
Correct.
What then is the appropriate punitive measures to take on the doctors and public officials and pharmaceutical executives who facilitated and rooted this on? What is the appropriate thing to do to them?
Well, I don't believe in collective justice, so it's a case-by-case basis, but I don't see why prison and stripping them of everything, if they knew what they were doing, and there's evidence that they knew what they were doing and knew what they were doing was experimental, which the WPATH files seem to strongly indicate many of them have no fucking clue what they're doing and are just being completely reckless by performing these experiments. Yeah, prison and complete removal of their license, all of that. Same thing with the doctors who participate in the opioid crisis. Why is that any different?
But what do we do
if
they're surrounded by a lot of people who will protect them, much like criminals get surrounded by all these activist judges?
Yeah. So so here's what I'll say. And you tell me what you think of this. This is the example I often go to as the enlightened centrist example. One of the principles of enlightened centrism is radical empathy. Our opposition to our opposition to immoral behavior is rooted in an understanding of it. So, for example, can I understand why a parent would surgically remove the breasts of their 13-year-old girl? So, okay, well, if I'm a parent, if I'm a normie, which I don't really like using that term because it just puts more and more distance between the average person who ultimately...
NPC is a better term, right?
No, I tend... Fair enough. Side point. But anyway... If I'm a parent and I don't even know what whatever. I've never encountered these ideas before. My doctor, another therapist, the American Medical Association, everyone is telling me you should, if your child says they're transgender, you should put them on puberty blockers and then consider the further medical treatment at that point. Because if you love your child, you want the best for them. It's like, it is so unbelievably easy for me to put myself in that person's shoes, given the information I have at hand, and say, of course I would do that. These people are they delusional, or are they're operating quite rationally if they're taking the advice of these institutions, which I agree have been corrupted. But then flip it. A child's gay and the parent, the ultra religious parent wants to send them to gay conversion therapy. It's like, it's just a brutal thing. It's like, if I was convinced that being gay would cause my child to burn in hell for eternity, and I used to grow up, or I was Christian, and the fear of hell is a real fucking thing, and it can weigh on you pretty heavily. It's like, of course, I would be inclined to send my kid to gay conversion camp if my pastor and my whole community said this is what needs to happen to save my child from hell. So it's like, is that delusional? It's rational depending on what your axioms are and depending on what you believe. So it's like some people say lock these. Matt Walsh says, or Michael Knowles says, eradicate transgenderism, lock these people up. They're whatever. It's like the doctors 100%. But my worry is exactly what Lev was talking about with that. Was it Aaron McIntyre's piece or whatever?
No. It was not Orrin McIntyre's piece. Orrin is going to be with Devin Erickson. So it's Devin Erickson's piece.
Yeah, whoever said that point about it spiraling out of control. Yeah. It's like it is entirely incumbent upon those of us who can moderate that disgust impulse to do so. That's not deny it, but to moderate it. And I find it very hard to rationally dispute that.